was it.
Don Fouts, one of the two officers that were near the scene of the Paulstein killing. I showed him the photo lineup and ultimately the picture of, he wasn't able to identify Arthur Lee Allen.
I went to Vallejo Police Department. Mr. Bauer put out a photo spread, and it gave me the impression that Lee Allen was the person that he thought was the Zodiac. This person outweighed the person that I saw that night by about 100 pounds, I would estimate, just an estimate, which took him out. His face, even though it's round, was too round. I don't recall him showing me a photograph of a profile that he says he did of Arthur Allen. But Zodiac had a widow's peak, hair coming in the center more and receding on both sides of the forehead. I don't know if that's the proper term for it, but that's what my parents used to call it. That was my impression at the time, is that it was not Lee Allen.
All right. Hello, everybody from the north, south, east, and west, and up into the ether. This is the Zodcast, bringing you the best in Zodiac Killer coverage, as well as some other cases that I like to cover, including missing people sometimes. But this is basically a Zodiac Killer focused podcast based on my book, Sighting In on the Zodiac Killer, which, of course, talks about my main person of interest, Donald Lee Cheney, and his patsy in this case, Arthur Lee Allen. Hey, Sepher, how are you? I'm going to definitely talk about some stuff that you gave me, Sepher. So I appreciate you emailing it to me. Sepher always runs across some really interesting Zodiac Killer related stuff that he brings to my attention. Hey, Chris. Glad you're doing well. How's the audio going? Because sometimes when I play a part of a video like the one I just played, that little segment from His Name Was Arthur Lee Allen, sometimes it'll screw it up. Hey, Darnell. I got a little piece for you too, Darnell. I was just over minutes before listening to my friend Val Evans' show, and she's talking about the Idaho murders case, which is really interesting. So I'll probably finish that up later. But definitely check out Val Evans on YouTube if you're into the Idaho murders case and the new alibi thing going on with that case. Val covers, which has been really good. Good. Thanks for letting me know. So what did I want to start with? First of all, this is a cool birthday gift. The hardback cover of Pucker Factor with our buddy there on the cover. The original Corky, not to outdo the new Corky, but that's Ted Braden on the cover. This really nice, beautiful hardback cover of Pucker Factor that, of course, has the Braden article that I wrote along with Jason Collins, who publishes this. And this is on, of course, it's available on Amazon. It's not cheap, but worth it. I mean, look how, just beautifully glossy printed pages. See, that's pictures of Ted Braden, of course, with Braden on the cover. It's really well done. I love that. Of course, I made a t-shirt out of that logo with Braden on the front of the MacVSOG logo, and the back, just nice, well made, hardback cover of book. Man, what a great gift! What a great book! Turned out really awesome. Really glad to have it in my collection, and I think those are going to make great Christmas gifts for some people that are Braden fans and everything else. No, I thought I would play the piano. We'll have to do it later. I'll bring the piano in later. At least I'll show the piano, but I'm sticking with the studio setup for now. But I'll probably have some keyboards over here to the left and right. Hey, Keith, how are you? What else did I want to get to? Darnell, going back to you, because you were asking, what did Darnell, you messaged me earlier and you said that you thought that Arthur Lee Allen was a pathological liar. And I said, no, well, Don Chaney is for sure. And I had told Darnell, Don Chaney told Michael Butterfield some crazy whoppers. and I couldn't remember one of them. So I went back and listened to a video, a Zodiac Killer documentary that Jerome put up on his channel. And I'd never seen this one before. I don't know if it wasn't shown in the US, but it had French subtitles. Of course, Jerome's in Belgium, but Butterfield's in it. So is Duffy Jennings, who was in the video with me, Myth of the Zodiac Killer. But anyway, Butterfield retells this story that Lon Chaney told him about Arthur Lee Allen. And Michael Butterfield told me the same story when he interviewed me. He told me offline before he interviewed me with Al Warren over on House of Mystery, 3 or 4 years ago, however long that was ago, when Michael Butterfield interviewed me. But the story that Lon Chaney told Michael Butterfield over the phone, he didn't interview him in person like who did, but he did talk to him on the phone. I don't know if it was a one-time phone call or he did it 2 times, but he did talk to Lon Chaney via telephone one time. And Cheney told Michael Butterfield that Arthur Lee Allen had told him that he was going to fly a plane into the Sears Tower, meaning Arthur Lee Allen was going to fly the plane into the Sears Tower. And I'm sure this idea probably came after 9/11. I don't know what date it was that Butterfield talked to Cheney. I don't know if it was, I'm assuming maybe early 2000s. I'm not sure when this conversation took place. I don't know if it was around 9/11 or where he got this idea, but Cheney told Michael Butterfield that Arthur Lee Allen said he was going to fly an airplane into the Sears Tower, which is now called what? Evans? I don't know. I'm thinking about. I know it's got a new name now. It's not called Sears Tower anymore. But anyway, Butterfield knew that story couldn't be true because at the time that Cheney said this conversation took place with Arthur Lee Allen, that the Sears Tower wasn't even built yet, because they just started building the Sears Tower in 1970. So there was no way that this could have been true. So that was it, Darnell. That's the one I couldn't think of, was the Sears Tower story about Arthur Lee Allen. So there's your answer. I think there was a couple more kind of crazy stories like that he told him, but that was the main one, was the one about Allen flying into the Sears Tower. Could you see Arthur Lee Allen flying the plane? I mean, like Muhammad Atta or something. I don't know. It's crazy. Everybody, Chris, everybody was at the so-called painting party that never existed. I mean, every suspect was there. Cheney was there. Allen must have been there. I mean, you name it. Carrot Top was there. Everybody was there. Falk wasn't a straight cop. Yes, I think Falk had it together. I mean, some people told me Falk was scared or whatever. I don't want to get too much into that because got some other stuff to cover. But I think Falk was straight up, and most people believe that Falk absolutely saw the Zodiac. And Allen was way too big. I mean, Allen was probably a 275 at that point. The one driver's license they have of Allen, he was 250. I don't know what Cheney weighed at the time, but Cheney was probably closer to 220. Of course, they were both 6 feet tall, but when you see that picture of Allen that was on the Seawater, or the video that the Seawaters put up of Allen, I mean, he's huge. I mean, he's probably pushing Ross Sullivan weight. No doubt about it. So yeah, Falk said 2 things. He said a widow's peak. We all know who had a widow's peak. And what else did Falk say about the description? Barrel chested with a widow's peak. Who fits that description? Hey, nice to see you, Jeff. So yeah, so there you go, Darnell. That was the story, the one about the Sears Tower. That was, and Butterfield recalls that phone call with Lon Chaney in that video that I cannot remember the name of this documentary, but Jerome put it up on his channel on the French Wrecking Crew, so it's there. Yes, Corky wants to say hello. I think that's all Corky knows. But anyway, this is for Jason. Brought this to my attention because I don't follow Reddit too much anymore, the Zodiac thread on Reddit. But somebody put, I guess it's an original Halloween card on eBay, and somebody bought it. And I guess, I don't know who first saw this or reported it, but Jason brought it to my attention. So thank you to Jason. And obviously you can see the first thing that's different about this is it's green. It doesn't have that black in the background on the front of the card from your secret pal. And, but apparently this is an original greeting card that's the same. So people have been looking for this for a long time. And, mainly they want to also find where the second skeleton on the inside was cut from, because it doesn't match the one on the outside. So that's one thing. But I wanted to read some comments that were on Reddit about this find of this Halloween card that's made by a company called Gibson, and so it wasn't from Jolly Roger that made the one card we talk about, the other one that always comes up, but one of the other ones. But this was from a company called Gibson, which I thought was interesting. So definitely, if you want to go check that out on Reddit, they're talking about this card. But let me read this story. It was actually pretty good. I don't know who wrote it, and I have no idea if this is true. I don't know these guys at all who post on there. I kind of know a couple of them, but they're not on there much. And so this is talking about when I don't know. This was on maybe a week or two ago on eBay when this card came up and somebody bought it. But this person said from Bert Gummer, 1911, for 3 days ago on Reddit, talking about this Halloween card, said the online auction ended early since the seller sold the card to a customer who came to a shop in person. So the auction didn't actually end. Somebody came in and bought it, so he took the listing down off of eBay. Said the purchaser was an old man who paid cash and only mentioned that he wanted to buy the card for the memories. I don't know if that's true, but I love stories like that. Even if it's not true, I love stories like that. And he put, he do hope that there will not be a manic rush to chase the buyer of the card who presumably doesn't know anything about its connection to Zodiac. Just imagine the roar if he really did turn out to be the old man wearing the squared glasses, which is quite likely. And this guy said, I think this is the most interesting recent development other than the cipher solve. Wow, that's saying a lot. The bottom of the original eBay listing says, please note, this card is from a group of Halloween cards that have been stored in a cabinet for many years. They do not have a musty scent, but do have a vintage aroma. And this one says, the green hue, either there were multiple variants of the card or the original is indeed green. Had the auction one had been black, the shade of the paint could not have been deteriorated so evenly. And for decades, the image of the black card, including Fincher's take, was just a retouch recreation. So I don't know. I don't know if the original card was green like this and whatever copy. I know some people are really into that. Sean, if you're listening, Sean Ball, let me know. I know you look into the Halloween card quite a bit as a graphic artist. So I want to know. I mean, was the original card this and the Zodiac one, whatever it got reprinted or sent in or whatever happened to it? Did they just make it look black? Was it whenever they recreated it? Because I don't know who's actually seen the original. I don't know. I'll find it, Darnell, where Butterfield says that, or I'll send you the link, or I'll post the link here. Jerome films the documentary from his TV set, so the audio is really hard to hear, but you can hear Michael Butterfield telling that story. Yeah, Keith, the goat's name is Corky, aka Touchdown, which of course he's named after Ted Braden, because Ted Braden was called Corky when he was a young lad. Of course, his buddies in Vietnam did not know that, but of course, Ted Braden's code name in Vietnam in MacV-SOG was Touchdown. So the goat is named after Ted Braden because the goat has balls of steel. Or supposedly. Yes, ALA license at 71, the 6'0", 250 pounds. I bet you he's more than 250. But, of course, if you took 100 pounds off of Arthur Lee Allen, he's going to be 150. And the guy they saw, even by, going by the kids' descriptions of Robin's kids, put him in the, 200, 225 area, such as Lake Berryessa from Brian and Cecilia. Yes. Good comment, Chris. I think the knife sheath gives Cheney away. I've always said that. Always have said that. That knife sheath gives Cheney away. You got to know how to make that kind of stuff. And Cheney absolutely knew how to make sheaths for knives. His grandfather taught him how to do it. David Henry Fryer was his grandfather on his mother's side. Fry Knight taught him how to make leather items that were sewn and look beautiful. Of course, I have a photograph of a hatchet sheath that Cheney made that's just etched and beautiful that he made for a Boy Scout hatchet. But yes, that sheath is a dead giveaway. Hartnell didn't know. I think what Hartnell was really looking at, he said it looked wooden. Nobody uses a wooden sheath for a knife like that, especially one with a foot long blade. I think it was because he's looking at that really nice leather, and he probably, he didn't say for sure it was wood. He just said it looked to him like wood. It's the way Brian Hartnell described the sheath at Lake Berryessa. But I think what he was looking at is a really nice, sturdy sewn leather sheath for that knife, that foot long knife went in. That Zodiac, of course, had on his left hand side. He was brandishing the gun on his right when he grabbed the knife, of course, puts the gun away, and he reaches with his right hand to start stabbing Brian and Cecilia using his right hand, which is just something I don't believe Arthur Lee Allen would have ever done. It's just another strike against Allen. Do not think that if Allen was at Berryessa, then he was the voyeur and Cheney's the attacker if they were both there, but I don't think so. Allen didn't walk well. No way Allen's walking down to the shoreline of Lake Berryessa. It's just not happening. No pumpkin on the front. Let me put it back up. Yeah, so Zodiac added the pumpkin. Zodiac added the pumpkin to the original card. And of course, he added the second skeleton inside the card. So some people say he just got it from another Halloween card and he cut it out, or these little things that would come, these little cutout skeletons around Halloween time. But no one's ever been able to find the source of the second skeleton, because everybody knew the one on the outside shown here was original. But the one inside was either a cutout or drawn and cut out by Zodiac, which I believe he did. I know some people disagree with me on that, but I think he drew it. I think he drew it and cut it out and made it and pasted it. I think he had a lot of artistic ability for sure. Yeah, leaving Hartnell alive was a huge mistake. Of course, Hartnell feigned death, so he might have been convinced that he was dead. I mean, you think he would have not left anyone dead, especially after leaving Mike Mageau alive at Blue Rock Springs, but he did. He left Hartnell. Yeah, I mean, Hartnell's the best witness to the Zodiac. There's no better. Of course, he was covered with the hood, but Hartnell was in his right mind. It was daylight. He engaged him in conversation. Of course, Cecilia gave a great description to Deputy Dave Collins of how tall she thought he was, 6 feet, 2 inches taller than Dave Collins at 5'10". They both saw the brown hair coming through the eyelets of the mask. I know we've been over that 1,000 times, but that's such an important clue, was seeing that. So let me go to the next slide. So this was interesting, and this goes to Sepher. Thank you, Sepher, for sending this. And this goes back to another guy's website talking about. I'll go back to this question in a minute. So you see here, this is a Phantom of the Opera poster, the original Phantom of the Opera, which of course starred Lon Chaney. And this Zodiac website was talking about how Robert Graysmith mentioned that the Count Marco card, the Red with Rage card, was influenced by the Phantom of the Opera, and the original actor in the Phantom of the Opera, Lon Chaney. Of course, Lon Chaney spelled his last name different than Don Chaney, but as the Zodiac, he probably would have liked that because of different phonetic spellings. But I always believed that Don Chaney was cognizant of other people that shared his surname. And this is something I've always done. My last name's Beeson. There's not a whole lot of Beesons out there. So if I see one, good or bad, I think, it catches my attention immediately. If it's one in the media, there was a World War II fighter pilot in Europe named Dwayne Beeson that had a plane called the Boise Bee. So I know all about Dwayne Beeson. Yes, we're related, but way back down the line with Dwayne, some others would be closer, but I'm always conscious of it. The dude that started bum fights, his last name is Beeson, and he's the guy that went on the Dr. Phil show dressed like Dr. Phil. He had the bald cap on and everything. It's hilarious. Of course, Dr. Phil didn't think it was funny and threw him off the show, but I think his name's Ty Beeson that started bum fights. Not that I'm proud of bum fights, but I'm cognizant of the name. Because it's not that common, and we all are related going back down the line. But I think Don Chaney was like that. So being the actor was Lon Chaney, a famous makeup artist and actor in horror movies. He would have loved it. I mean, this would have been somebody that he probably liked. And of course, the spelling with the A spelling is versus the E. you could be just as closely related to somebody like that or not. Like I talk about, there's Beasons that spell their name Beason. Well, that's just screwed up when some of the censuses were taken. There's a lot of Beasons in Alabama that I'm closer related to than a Beeson somebody in another state. It's just a flip of a one letter. So I always thought that. Let me bring up the link that Sepher sent. So this is good stuff, man. Thanks for sending it, Sepher. Because it made me go back and think about that. Okay, here it is. I thought I had this up, but I had another one. Okay, this is from a website called Project MK Zodiac. I would have brought it up on the screen, but it screws up the whole thing. Okay, this is the called the Secret of the Red Phantom on this website. It's a really good website. It's mk-zodiac.com if you want to check it out. I'm sure a lot of people have already seen this website, but it's really good. Of course, the letter reads, editor, put Marco back in the hellhole from whence it came. He has a serious psychological disorder. Always needs to feel superior. I suggest you refer him to a shrink. Meanwhile, cancel the Count Marco column since the Count can write anonymously, so can I. The Red Phantom, red with rage. That's a well-known Zodiac attributed letter. Most think that is absolutely written by the Zodiac Killer. And, it shows the cover and all that. And it talks about the Red Phantom, of course, using the Red Phantom. And then it shows that poster there on this website. It calls the Phantom of the Opera. In the 1986 book, Zodiac, Robert Graysmith suggested the possibility that the Red Phantom may have been related to the 1925 silent film, The Phantom of the Opera, starring Lon Chaney. Okay, so this is Graysmith suggesting it. Well, who was suggesting other things to Graysmith that produced this book and later the David Fincher film? Lon Chaney was probably told Graysmith that this could have come from Lon Chaney. Definitely, I believe that Lon Chaney was telling Graysmith all kinds of stuff because he's the goose that laid the golden egg. Who made the most money off of the Zodiac case? Who really made any money off the Zodiac case? Let's be real. I mean, the Fincher film did okay, but it wasn't some major blockbuster. It wasn't. It was very well done, very popular, and certain people in areas, but as far as his film repertoire goes, wasn't some massive blockbuster moneymaker. Robert Graysmith made a lot of money off of the books and whatever he got when Fincher decided to base his film off of the Graysmith book. So Lon Chaney was the goose that laid the golden egg for Mr. Graysmith, any way you look at it. So I think that could have easily been Don's suggestion, just like he throws out ABC Murders and his name was Arthur Lee Allen. I think he throws this out to Graysmith. I really do. I think it's possible that Don said something like, I think that came from the silent film with Lon Chaney. I could definitely see him in that. And I do think he was cognizant of his last name. I really do. Yeah, Cheney was very skilled at leather work. There's no doubt. If you've seen my book, I've got a picture of the sheath that he made for a hatchet. That is absolutely 100% guaranteed. The picture that I have in my book is of, it's not a replica. It's the one that Cheney actually made. And wasn't easy for me to get that photograph. I'll put it to you that way. But 100% Cheney made that sheath that I show in my book. And it's immaculate the way it's done. Really good. Yeah, I think he did. His sister, Cheney's sister, was a very skilled seamstress. Made all the high school, Bakersfield High School theater department costumes for the high school. Of course, she later goes to Bakersfield Junior College, where Don later goes, following in her footsteps. I think they were 2 years apart in grades, but she made all those costumes. Very, very highly skilled at sewing. I don't know if she helped with some of the ones at Bakersfield College. Of course, when they did, she was already out of Bakersfield Junior College when they performed the Mikado. But when they did the Mikado at Bakersfield Junior College in 1953, they had some company out of Utah make all the costumes for the Mikado. Like, it was such a huge production for a junior college. They really took it seriously. They had professional company made all the elaborate costumes for the Mikado for that junior college production, was where those costumes came from, which was a big deal. So anyway, I really do think that that's highly possible that Cheney could have suggested that to Graysmith or got it out there somehow. I also think it's interesting that the pseudonym for Arthur Lee Allen in the original book by Grace Smith Zodiac was Robert Hall Starr. And I know that Don Cheney had a classmate at Bakersfield Junior College named Bob Starr. Now, I don't know if his middle name was Hall, or I'd really jump out of my skin, because then it came from there. But Starr is not too common. Ringo Starr comes from Starkey, so there's not a whole lot of stars. What was there, that one judge or whatever, or lawyer, there was Starr, who was it, the hanging Chad lawyer or whatever. It's not too common. But anyway, Cheney had a class with a guy named Bob Starr at Bakersfield Junior College, so who knows where it all comes from. But definitely. So here on the right is a picture of Lon Chaney Sr. Of course, there's Junior and Senior. Remember that. There's two Lon Cheneys. His name was Leonidas, but he went by Lon, Lon. But Lon Chaney had a house in the Sierra Nevada. It says Cheney Sierra Nevada house located near Big Pine, California, was his mountain retreat. Of course, he did well in movies and all that. So you're getting kind of close to Peek Through the Pines. Of course, that's Tahoe. But I don't know how close this Big Pine, California is to all that, but that's just kind of interesting. That whole area comes in there, that he had this house. Sepher sent that too. So thanks for Kinstar. Thank you, Patty. I knew it was somebody, but it's the only star I think of is Kinstar. Of course, you thought of it, but I just remember the only other one. Cheney must have had, oh yeah, absolutely. He must have had a commercial sewing machine. So the quality made the Zodiac symbol, the executioner mask, could be a Cheney creation all day long, because you didn't take that to the local dry cleaner there that had maybe a seamstress that's going to sew that and say, oh, can I have my Zodiac outfit back with the cross circle on it, the medieval hood with the well done. Of course, remember Hartnell said that it wasn't scrawled on with some paint. It was done with care. It was symmetrical. It was sewn. No doubt about it. I mean, they speculated at the time, and it's in any profile of Zodiac. I think it's in Korsgaard's book and some others that do pretty good Zodiac killer profiles, that he had sewing skills. Of course, they try to say that Arthur Lee Allen could sew because he sewed sails in the Navy or some nonsense like that. Sewing in the Navy on a sail is nothing like being able to do the cross circle that's stitched and tight. That's somebody that has a high level of sewing ability. And I know some men back in the day probably could sew to some degree, but not at that level. Don Cheney was an advanced sewer. I mean, well advanced. There's no doubt. I have the proof. It's irrefutable stuff. Yeah, I think he took pride in it. Absolutely. Yes, Chris, he took pride in that. But going back, yeah, Lon Chaney, original star silent movie, which is it's weird that Lon Chaney made it in silent movies, because both his parents were deaf. They were completely deaf, both of them. I think they met at a deaf school and then had Lon. So he was, of course, very fluent in sign language, because that's the only way he could communicate with his parents. But both of Lon Chaney's parents were completely deaf. So it's kind of interesting. And then, of course, he has his son, Lon Chaney Jr., which was the werewolf. Of course, that's the Count Marco letter. Should have put that up earlier. And you see Lon Chaney and the different people in that. And this is Lon Chaney Jr. on the right. Looks a lot like his father, especially when he was younger, and he played the werewolf. So maybe that was also something that he liked. And these are cool. These cards that they made. There's the Wolfman, and there's a Phantom of the Opera based on Lon Chaney Sr. And then another thing that I thought before that might have influenced Don Cheney was another Cheney named J. Benton Cheney, if you want to look him up. And he was a screenwriter, and he wrote a lot of screenplays for old Westerns like Tim Holt. And these are two Tim Holt movies that J. Benton Cheney wrote the screenplay for. Now, of course, we know that the Zodiac connection with Tim Holt and the Wheel of Death, and that comes from the Tim Holt comic book based on the true actor Tim Holt. But these are two Tim Holt, starred movies right here, Pirates of the Prairie and Fighting Frontier, that J. Benton Cheney wrote the scripts for. So there could be some more clues in these movies. I mean, they're on YouTube or whatever, but I always felt like he was aware of J. Benton Cheney as well, who spelled, same spelling as Don Cheney, but this guy wrote a lot of Roy Rogers, just Hopalong Cassidy. I mean, probably like 100 of these old Westerns, where somebody that liked comics and Westerns like Tim Holt would have liked all this stuff. And this guy wrote so many of them. Later, he winds up writing for Boys Life magazine, which was Boy Scout issued magazine. I got it when I was in the Boy Scouts, called Boys Life. And J. Benton Cheney wrote most of the articles in Boys Life, I think in the 60s. And Lon Chaney was a Boy Scout, but that was in the 40s. But that's just another interesting connection with him. So here's another movie on the left called Phantom Valley, just the tie in there. That's the screenplay written by J. Benton Cheney. And this one I'm really intrigued about, and I have not read this book, but it's called Don Diablo, The Book of a Lost Film. And the screenplay you can see there is written by J. Benton Cheney, directed by Paul Landis. And I'm not even sure what this book is about. It's like $37. So I'm going to have to splurge at 37 to know what's in the book. But it's interesting. I don't know if this is like some Zorro character or whatever. Of course, you got the name Don Diablo. You think about Diablo and another, J. Benton Cheney work. So maybe there's something in there. But that book is available on a website. It's not on Amazon. And I'm not even sure what it's about, other than it says it's Book of a Lost Film. I don't know if it's about the director or actually what's it about. I just thought this was intriguing, this Don Diablo. And Sepher, you sent that to me originally too. I ran across it again. So thank you, Sepher, again for sending that out. So yeah, the whole connection with Phantom, Lon Chaney Sr., J. Benton Cheney, all these Cheneys. I just think there's something there. Just no doubt. Let me change this and read this part. So yeah, definitely. I think it's just not it's not a coincidence. Let me go back and check these. You got a deck of those monster cards? Those things are so cool. Were they vintage? I wonder if they still make them. Remember those Illuminati cards? They had like that a lot of the predictions came true. They were like Illuminati that showed like the 9/11 deal. And like, there's one that looks like Trump, and they're called like Illuminati cards or something. No doubt. Yeah, Don Diablo. I want to get that. Yeah, if you look that up, if you look at title of that book up, it might be there. Just thought it was cool. Darnell, I first heard the name Zodiac in 2002 while watching Unsolved Mysteries. After that, I sort of forgot about him. Then I heard it again in the summer of 2007. Yeah, because the movie came out. Been fascinated ever since. I'd never watched the Fincher film when it came out. I wasn't even into Zodiac then. I knew about it, but wasn't really. What got me into it was watching his name was Arthur Lee Allen, no doubt. When I saw Don Chaney said he was licking the guy's stamps, I was like, huh? You were licking his stamps? That got my attention. No, I wish I did. I know the vehicles he owned later, like at the time he passed away, but I do not know what he had back in the 60s or 70s, or if anyone, Pedro, if you could find that out. I don't even know if that would exist anywhere, but Pedro, if you could find out what cars he owned, would be huge, man. If you have any way of getting like old DMV records for the state of California to find out what kind of cars he had, would be huge. Yeah, probably a truck for such an avid hunter that would go on those long hunting trips. But Pedro or anybody, if you can find that out, I'd love to know. Absolutely. Yeah, I wish I had a picture of that hatchet that sheet that he made. Oh yeah, he was dropping hints like crazy. And what I'm thinking now is he dropped more hints directly to Graysmith that wound up coming up. This whole painting party nonsense could have been some suggestion by Don, because Don jumps on it later and says that Alan was at the painting party or some craziness like that. He was always, and of course it says, like, even that documentary I was talking about, when something new would come out, Cheney would jump on it to try to tie Alan into it. But the most interesting part of the interview with who, which would deserve a groat scream, was that he's asked by who, did Arthur Lee Allen like ciphers or puzzles or codes or cryptograms? And he says, no, I don't remember any of that. I don't remember him liking that. Did he like? And he said, did he like stuff like the Mikado? And he said, no, but I did. Allen didn't like it. He liked Mad Magazine, but I liked the Mikado. He's trying to tell you this is him. If he's all about framing Allen, he's going to say, hell yeah, I did ciphers. Man, this guy was constantly like drawing symbols, and he was like writing on napkins and trying to do codes. I mean, every 5 minutes we would be sitting at the IHOP and he was like writing this stuff on a napkin. But yet he doesn't jump on that. He says, no, I don't have any recollection of Arthur Lee Allen being into ciphers or codes or liking the Mikado. Why, if he's trying to frame this guy or it's revenge or I just want you to believe it's Arthur Lee Allen, why doesn't he jump on every little table scrap, including the biggest marker of being the Zodiac, the ciphers? Lon Chaney doesn't touch that piece with Allen. He leaves it alone. That's so telling. I can't even get it across how he doesn't jump on that, because he doesn't want to give everything away to Allen. He wants to keep some for himself. That's the way he thinks. ABC Murders. Okay, Captain J. When Lon Chaney gave that interview to and said that Arthur Lee Allen wasn't in the opera. Yep, that's it. Very telling. Yes, he wasn't into opera. He said, no, he wasn't into Mikado. Yes, but I was. He wasn't, but I was. And 0 on ciphers. No, don't remember him liking puzzles. Don't remember him doing ciphers. Nothing like that. But remember, Phil Tucker saw ciphers in Allen's room, and Phil Tucker's wife saw Allen with ciphers that had symbols just like the ones that Zodiac had before they were printed in the paper. Hey, Sepher. Where is it? Looks like the Halloween skeleton. You'll have to email it to me if you're trying to put the image up. Yes. Thank you, Fire Pixie. Please hit the like button and share often. That definitely helps out the channel. I do not ask for any money whatsoever, but please share and hit the like button if you feel so moved. Corky wasn't a Zodiac influencer. He is now. Yeah, that's the most telling thing. Not jumping on that. What's boo? That's true, but even Hartnell said it looked like something custom. I mean, for a foot long, I mean, yeah, you could find it. That's true, but one thing you're not going to find is that hood with that symbol sewn into it. You're not going to find that at a flea market. No way. Oh, hey, Justin. So the thing is, back to that, Steven, if he did sew the cross circle logo, he could have made the knife sheath for sure. And whoever it was at Lake Berryessa definitely was not squeamish about what it feels like to actually plunge a knife into somebody. That's somebody that's either done that to a human being before, or somebody that's done it to animals, gutted animals and cooked animals. Wild game in the forest, most dangerous game. That just sounds like an avid hunter. And Cheney was a mountain man, described as a mountain man. This guy wasn't just some casual, went out for the few hours shooting some deer. He would go hunting for days, sleeping out in the wilderness, killing the food, eating the food, living off the land, no problem. He could have survived in the wilderness for as long as he needed to. Those were skills that he had. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. Hello, Art Student 13. Glad to see new people coming in like that. Okay, I'll check it out. See, I want to see what you sent me. That's some good stuff you found, Suffer. I really think he liked all things Cheney. Oh, is that for the card? That's the link. That's the eBay link you sent me. Oh, wow. Yeah, the Lon Chaney print. That's the print that he sent me. Lon Chaney Sr. That's cool. He drove he drove a Ford Super X. Oh, I know he could do that. There's no doubt. He got oh, that's a good point, Jen. He absolutely could do that. Could have tanned the leather from one of his kills. Yes, he hunted big game. I mean, it wasn't a safari hunter, but as far as where you could get to, and he liked to hunt the Nez Perce tri-state area, Washington State, Oregon, parts of California, but those 3 states, Idaho, the Nez Perce is in Idaho. His favorite place was Poets Creek in Idaho, so he liked to hunt Idaho quite a bit. He absolutely knew how to skin animals, eat the animals. He probably did. The leather he used probably did come from there. That's a good point. Would be funny if they dug up Gary Post guns in the mountains and they come back to Cheney. Oh, that wins the internet. That is hilarious. How old would Zodiac be today? Well, if he was, let's just say 30 in 1970, that kind of tells you. Well, I'm born in 69, so if I hate to admit it, I'm old now. If I have to put 30 years on me, I'm 84, so mid 80s. If he's still alive, he's mid 80s to, I'd say anywhere from 80 to 90 would be a good range if he's still alive. Of course, my belief is he died in a little while back. But yeah, he'd be 80 to 90 if he was still alive. That's so funny. I think I missed this, Steven. Was it the bloody notepad book laying in the gutter under Paul's head? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. If anybody knows that, let me know. If Richard's watching, or if Richard might watch it later because it's, I don't know, 4 a.m. over in the UK. But if Richard, if you're watching, let me know the answer to that about Paul Stein's notepad or his logbook. Like if he wrote his fares and stuff, or his fare book. I think that's what Steven's trying to say. I think it's a fare book or a logbook, whatever the cab drivers call it. I don't know. I never heard much about that. I think he did find Patty Gimlin. I think he did. It's the it's a Patterson Cheney film. Hey Anthony, good seeing you. I'm glad you made it live. I think this is the best time. Sunday just works. I'm gonna try to do it every Sunday night. It works out better for everybody. Good way to start the week. So, because Mondays can be so brutal. That's so funny. No, I think I think there's a lot to that. I think Cheney told Graysmith a lot of stuff. And Graysmith, he doesn't talk to anybody now. I don't think he talks to anybody. I'm definitely going to get the Shooting Zodiac Kindle and start reading it. Oh, that's good. So that works for you, Anthony. Did you get that Sunday nights off? That's cool. Porky the car alarm could have spooked on Cheney. I definitely think that's true. That's a good point, Stefan. Like the Zodiac, Lon Chaney looked totally different when he did his thing. Yeah, because Lon Chaney was a master makeup artist. I think that I could definitely just see him, not only because it was the type of movies, but it was his name. He would have been cognizant of his name, just like J. Benton Cheney. When you hear Cheney, you only think of Dick Cheney. If only Don could have made a wig for ALA, then Graysmith would have been happy. Yes, that is a big problem with Allen, especially at Lake Berryessa. If that's Allen at Lake Berryessa, he had to have been wearing a wig. There's no way around that. If that's Allen doing the attacks at Lake Berryessa, he's wearing a wig. because there's no way Alan had the ability to grow whatever hair he had to come down through the eyelets of the mask. Now, Cheney had a widow's peak, but I've shown that photo of him from 75 where he's growing out the hair in the middle where it's long. It's like longer than mine, you know, like where you know, could easily make it through the eyelets, growing it out in the middle. So yeah, there's no way that is Alan at Lake Berryessa. It's not him. Doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. Just going back and checking some of the earlier ones. Because sometimes I'll miss a question, but I remember somebody left a question 2 or 3 weeks ago that I missed, that asked it twice, but he was asking about Ray Davis. It was either Ray Davis or the Swindles. And if something, I think like if the ballistics from that were tested against the ones from Lake Herman Road, and I'm sure they weren't. When I think of stuff like that, like think of Sherry Joe Bates, which I do not think is Zodiac, but they have DNA from the Sherry Joe Bates attack, and they tried to claim they had at least a Zodiac profile from the 78 letter from the envelope or under the stamp or whatever, or outside of the stamp, whatever it was. So if they were that confident in that sample that they ruled Arthur Lee Allen out on, which I'm told is a 78 letter, if they're that confident that was Zodiac, or if they wrote the 78 letter like I know Richard believes, why wouldn't they test that against what they have from Sherry Joe Bates? And why wouldn't we know about it? That's a huge question. That'd be the first thing about tracing any ballistics from any canonical to non-canonical crime or whatever. If they really felt that they had a decent DNA profile from the 78 letter, why wouldn't they test that against what they have from the Bates crime that they tested her ex-boyfriend against, and he came up negative, but he's still the number one suspect as far as Riverside PD goes. We know who we're talking about because he's a baseball guy, if you know who I'm talking about. But why wouldn't they do that? If they had any confidence in that, you know, they had enough confidence to say that, oh, well, we rolled Arthur Lee Allen out because he was negative against the 78 letter DNA profile. Oh, so you must feel good about that. Why wouldn't you test that against the Sherry Joe Bates DNA and see if they match? Never been done because they don't have Zodiac DNA. They might have something from the attacker of Bates or somebody along with the boyfriend, but why would they not test that against the 78 letter DNA that Allen was excluded on to Sherry Joe Bates DNA? That is the question. And because they know that they don't, that the one from the letter is junk. And from what I know, I think the one from the Bates is legit. It just might not be the person that actually killed her or somebody who was with her, because I'm kind of a boyfriend believer myself on Bates. No way ALA could have walked down to the lake with a symptomatic gout that affected his gait. Yes, Allen just was not moving around well. I mean, even Norm Boudreau says that when you talk about, even when Allen was still a good diver. Now, Arthur Lee Allen was a good athlete back in the day. He was a state level champion in diving, springboard diving. I mean, not only was he adept at the trampoline, I mean, that big old guy could flip around and do all kind of crazy stuff on a trampoline when he was younger. But even when he was a good diver, they said he just looked awful walking up to the platform. But once he finally made his dive, he looked like, poetry in motion or something. But even getting up there, he looked awkward, because even when he was still a good diver, he walked around kind of funny. But by 1969, he was not walking around well at all. No way he makes that. And when you remember Brian Hartnell talking about in This is the Zodiac speaking, he said when he first knows that there's something really wrong, when the guy that Cecilia was looking at over there and he puts on the hood, he's walking at them briskly. He's briskly walking. He's not running, but he's not walking. He's briskly walking. He's walking very fast towards them, closing in. So Brian doesn't have the time to think, oh, do I make a run at this guy or attack him or whatever? I mean, Hartnell at 6'7", even if the guy who's encountering, is 6 foot, he's got the gun out. But, Brian, if Brian had decided to make a move under that gun, he probably would have been successful. But according to him, Cecilia told him not to, and the opportunity was lost. Dick or Don, they both have shot other people. This show wins the gold award for the comedy comments tonight. Poetry and motion and RTL just don't seem to go together. No, not at all. Even when he was good, he didn't walk around well at all. Yeah, there's no way Alan makes that hike down there where they were. It was a good distance, and you're going uphill. When he leaves, he's got to go uphill to go write the message on the car door, even if it's half at one point or half at the other, which I love that theory, by the way, for plate C. If you watch later, I'm sure he'll watch later, but I kind of like that theory. I think that was plate C that said that, right? Where he thought he wrote half of the stuff on the car door and then finished it after the attack. I kind of like that. He did the triple Indy. He did the triple Indy dive from Back to School. Man, I love that movie. That's like I think that's one of the greatest movies ever made. It's Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. It's so funny. What they did with Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut writes his term paper on Kurt Vonnegut, and he gets a C. And he calls him up, bawling him out for getting him a C. I love that movie. Gray Smith grows more faint all the time. His theory is full of half-truths, innuendo, false conclusion, had his moment. Yeah, he made a good $10 million out of the whole escapade. I mean, he got divorced, and I'm sure his first wife got some of that money that, living in California, but he's still living pretty well off the Zodiac, no doubt about it. Voodoo Baby. On land, ALA was like a fish out of water. Yeah. Once he got in that water, he was great. He was a really good diver, but man, he did not walk around well. He just didn't. As your sister once said, Back to School is the greatest movie ever made. I love that movie. They got Oingo Boingo playing in the dorm room. The diving part is the funniest, though. The whole movie is great. What was the name of that actor that played his son? Because he was in Stephen King's Christine, the Stephen King movie about the haunted car. It was that same actor. I don't remember the guy's name, but he's the one that played Dangerfield's son in Back to School. That guy was pretty good. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if the guy's still alive or if he's still acting, but he was pretty good. He was like pretty good actor. Shooting a 9mm inside a car in front of you will blow. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I wish I'd gone to Lake Berryessa when I was out in the area. I mean, I know there's like a video that kind of shows you where they were, but it's all been washed out. Like when you watch This is the Zodiac speaking, and Hartnell's kind of describing what went on and where he came from and the tree and all that. I'm sure it looks even a lot different when they filmed the movie in 06 or 05 before it came out in 07, because it takes forever to edit the thing. So I don't know what year. It had to have been, no earlier than 2006, so it probably changed even more. Plunge, yes. The name of the Vallejo High School diving team was called the Vallejo Plunge. I did go check out Vallejo High School, and it's all original, like where the swimming pool is. It still says Vallejo Plunge. It was the same it was in the 70s. Hasn't changed at all. I think I got some of that stuff up. Keith Gordon, is that his name? Keith Gordon? Yeah, he's a pretty good actor. He was great in Christine. He was in Jaws 2, the original Jaws, or was it Jaws Part 2? Keith Gordon. I'm going to check that out. I used to try to remember actors like that. Yeah, he was good. It was just probably wouldn't have been the first guy to think of for Back to School, but he was just kind of that weird. It just worked out. Of course, that was what's his name? Drawing a blank was also in the movie. I'm just thinking about Back to School. Robert Downey. Finally, my brain's working. Yeah, Sam Kinison as a history professor was hilarious. Screaming about the rice patties and all that. I was once in possession of Sam Kinison's piano. True story. The piano that he used to go around, because he was a preacher before he was a comedian, and he had a piano that he played during these tent revival sermons that he did throughout Oklahoma or whatever. Before he became the insane comic. And he used to play in Houston at the Laugh Stop when it was on West Gray. And when I was working for my uncle, The last stop had to move because they wanted the landlord there was kicking them out. They didn't want a comedy club there anymore because the rents were so high, and they were going to redevelop the center or something like that. So they're kicking the last stop out. So they moved into a building that I was leasing, and they had in their storage there Sam Kinnison's piano that he would, when he would do his live comedy at the last stop on West Gray, they would haul the piano out, and it was his piano. He just, for some reason, kept it there. And he'd come out during his bit and he'd play the piano, do some of that old tent revival stuff and play, because he could play pretty well. But for some reason, the last stop had the piano. So when I moved them in this 2-story retail center and had to build it out on the second floor and had to put sprinklers in, it was a nightmare. But we wound up, they only made it like 7 or 8, maybe they made it a year before they just fell behind and the guy sold it to another guy. And then they just eventually didn't renew the release and moved out, but they stored the piano in our little storage space downstairs at this retail center. And it was the old upright piano. And I swear that thing was haunted. I'd go into that room, and it was like old stuff where people move out, like kitchen equipment, this kind of thing. And Kinnison's piano in the back. Every time I walked in that room, you could hear like weird noises and voices and crap. And I swear it came from that piano. I don't know what became of it. I wish I had kept it because it was his original piano that he toured around with. So that's my Sam Kinison story, and I'm sticking to it. Which documentary in the late 80s? I'm not sure which one that is, but since you said it. Oh, 3 Large Oak Trees. Okay. I wish I'd try to go find it. I was out there, but I don't know. I should have gone since I was already out in Vallejo. It wouldn't have been too much further to, at least I kind of regret not going because, the next time I'll be out there, but I kind of regret not at least trying to go find the site. Of course, I went to Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs, but I did not try to find the Berryessa. I think I was just too tired from filming for multiple hours straight. Did he? I don't remember that. Sam Kinison did a Saturday Night Live grade school teacher, non-vet. Maybe I vaguely remember that. I guess it was like the scene from Back to School. I was a Kinison fan, no doubt. It's funny. Definitely one of the greats. Kinison and Ralphie May. Ralphie May was hilarious. 2 guys that died early. 2 great comedians that died too young. Ralphie May and Sam Kinison. We're still waiting on Gary Post guns. As soon as we can find some guys young enough to climb that mountain, we're going to go get those guns. We're going to prove it was Gary. We're going to prove it. As soon as we feel like going up that mountain, we're going to get those guns. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up right here in an hour. I'm going to start making these shows like about an hour unless something really huge is going on. But Sepher, thank you for sending that stuff. Keith Gordon, 62 now. So he's still around. I guess he's still acting and stuff. Just haven't seen him in anything. But, yeah, he was great in those 2 movies. I know he did some other stuff, too. Pretty good actor. That was just a great movie. They don't make them like that anymore. So thanks to all the people that showed up in the chat. Ooh, I like that. I don't know if you had said that once before, Mike, but thanks. Washington Street is in Washington, D.C. D.C. John Cheney hint was his car parked on Vallejo Street. With his car parked on Vallejo Street. Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah, if you see anything else, send it along. We'll put it up. Hey, thanks, Chris. Post was hampered because all those animal traps. He got stuck in one. Okay, that's going to have to get a goat scream. Thanks, Voodoo Baby. Have a good night, everybody.